All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caleb Holmes. I'm an organizer with the Sierra Club Delta chapter, and today we are launching the first of a series of candidate forums for this election cycle. Thank you for everyone who is participating in these questions, everyone who is participating in this forum, and thank you for everyone who made it out tonight. Power Coalition and partners break down what it means on our digital outreach platforms, a few important questions this election season. Where will you be voting? How do you plan to get to your polling site? And feeling prepared to vote on the ballots that are upcoming. And that's why we're having this forum this evening. This evening we will be having Senate District 6, the 19th District Judge race, and the EBR Family Court. I apologize for that. Our forum, of course, is hosted by a long list of partners, which include the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, Southern University Law Center, the Voice of the Experience, the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison Reform Coalition, Louisiana Organization for Refugees and Immigrants, PREACH, the Justice Alliance, Save the Children Action Network, NAACP Baton Rouge Chapter, Black Voters Matter, Abella La Femme Society, the Sierra Club, Moms Demand Action, Louisiana Survivors for Reform, the Amandla Group, the Promise of Justice Initiative, Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana, Defend Louisiana, Advocates for Social Justice of Nu Gamma Omega Chapter, Pumps to the Polls and Urban League of Louisiana, La Capitale Chapter of the Links Incorporated, and the Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. If there's any Deltas in the room, I'm sorry. Please don't come after me. And last but not least, Metromorphosis. I want to go over a few housekeeping announcements this evening. Our staff will provide the moderator with the audience questions, and we ask that the questions that you ask be posed directed to all of the candidates. We will also be launching several poll questions throughout the forum. Before we get started, some general voter information. The last day to register in person or by mail is September the 13th, 2023. The last day to register, that is online. Visit powercoalition.org to get all of your voter education information. Lastly, you will see all of this information, including the general duties of the candidate position. I will now turn it over to our moderator, Ellen McKnight Hill of the Maxine Firm.
Thank you so much, Caleb. At this time, good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen McKnight Hill, and I will be serving as your moderator this evening for the 2023 Senatorial District 6 and also District Judge 19th District, and also the Judge and Family Court Election Power Candidate Forum. That was a lot, but we'll get it together as we move through this. Okay, so we are joined by some candidates who are running for Senate District 6, District 19, and then also Division J and Judge Family Court. All candidates were invited. The following have confirmed: Barry Ivy, Ms. Roselia Allen, Lynn Liger, Reverend Colette Gilliard, and Kathy Bick. Okay. Candidates, thank you for joining us this evening. We are so happy that you have come out. We will ask a series of questions, and then we will allow 2 minutes for a response. After all questions have been asked, the floor will be open for your personal questions. You should have cards. So does everyone have an index card before them? Does everyone have a writing utensil? Wonderbar. All right. So you'll hear a timer. So the Power Coalition representative is going to have a 15-second warning timer. 30-second warning timer. Caleb will put it up in the back just to make certain that we are all on schedule. Okay? So without further ado, we're going to start with Mr. Barry Ivy. For a little context before we ask the first question, right now, Louisiana has a wait list of families that qualify for Child Care Assistance Program. This program helps parents secure quality early care and education for their children while they work to go to school or look for new jobs. This program provides families and communities across the state working in critical area of our economy. This program is primarily funded by federal money that is due to expire. To serve more than 143,000 in need children in Louisiana, increased state investment in the Children's Care Assistance Program is necessary. So, Barry Ivy, Mr. Ivy, would you please introduce yourself, and then I will ask the question regarding the Child Care Assistance Program.
Sure. Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be here with y'all. I appreciate the invitation. A little bit about myself. I have served as state representative for House District 65 for the past 11 years. If anyone follows me in politics, you know I'm a bit of an outlier amongst my colleagues. I have been married for 25 years to the love of my life. We have 4 children, boy, girl, from 24, 22, 19, and 16, and my oldest daughter and husband just had our first grandchild 8 weeks ago, so that's a whole new world for me out there right now. My approach to serving in the legislature is very simple: people, principles, policy. That's it. I hate politics with a passion. Politics has only ever served as a distraction. It's never solved a single problem that I'm aware of. And then finally, my philosophy for serving is very simple. Do the right thing for the right reasons, and don't worry about anything else. And when you do that, it allows you to focus on what's really at the core of an issue, and allows you to, and how that affects people, and then the principles that may underpin a direction, and then it's about working on the policy to solve that problem so we can help people. So that's all I do. I avoid the politics. And so happy to be here and happy to participate in this forum.
Thank you, Mr. Ivy. Okay. So, Mr. Ivy, question 1. Do you support or oppose increased state investment in the Child Care Assistance Program? Do you support or oppose increased investment in the Child Care Assistance Program?
All right. So, I support investing in people. And there's no greater investment, I think, that we can make. I think the data reflects that than in quality, child care, pre-K type education programs. And so I absolutely support that. One of the things that is always bothered me is when we say that we need to prioritize our spending, and then our budgets don't reflect our stated priorities. And so for me, fully funding early childhood education, including investments in these child care programs to help people, give them assistance as they try to improve their quality of life for their families, is I believe one of the best uses of those resources.
Thank you, Mr. Ivy. Question 2, a little context. Teachers in the child care centers across the state of Louisiana earn a median wage of $9.13 per hour with minimal benefits. Low wages in this profession contribute to high turnover, which affects the quality of child care, which affects the quality of child care children are receiving across the state of Louisiana. Mr. Ivy, what is your plan to improve compensation and benefits for early childhood workforces? Again, I'm just going to say it again for the good folks on the internet. What is your plan to improve compensation and benefits for the early childhood workforces?
So, without having done a deep study into the details of what the problem would be, there may be varying components, and so I'm a very data-driven decision maker, and so I would need that data. But I will say that I have had multiple conversations and working on an idea. We already find it difficult to attract and retain quality educators across the board. So I'm assuming that problem also exists clearly in the pre-school age group as well. And so I don't know the qualifications or the certifications or credentials that these teachers or people watching these younger children may or may not have. But I believe that we should develop programs through our technical community college system that could provide the right technical skills and training and credentials for to create some type of certification for these pre-K type teaching workforce, and by elevating their qualifications and skill sets, I believe that it would automatically demand a more competitive wage, which could certainly include and should include benefits as well. And so again, getting back to investing in people, we invest in our young people or whoever wants to serve that community by elevating their training and certification and all. They would be rewarded through more pay, benefits, and also be able to produce a more beneficial outcome for our kids who are in those programs.
Thank you. So, on the topic of gun violence, the legislature has had at least one representative propose a permitless carry of a firearm without a background check or a permit for almost 6 years now. Louisiana is the only state in the Deep South to resist this bill and has either voted against it or vetoed this bill each time it comes up. Over 80% of Louisianians also oppose this bill. Mr. Ivey, would you support permitless carry? Why or why not?
All right, so I'm pretty sure I was the first legislature to actually author a permitless carry bill in the state of Louisiana, and there is a fundamental logic behind it. And I will say that some of the proposals that some of my colleagues have been, they went to 18. Mine was 21, and also one of the key distinctions that I required a duty to inform law enforcement, which mirrors our concealed carry process, where if law enforcement stops someone who has their concealed carry permit and they're carrying, that person has a duty to inform law enforcement they are carrying. So I added that as a requirement under my permitless carry bill. So fundamentally, laws to prohibit law-abiding citizens to carry a firearm in the state only really limit the law-abiding people from doing it, because the people who are out there on the streets who may be selling drugs and things like that, and there's almost a high correlation between people who are selling drugs and committing those kind of crimes and also possessing a firearm, which is all illegal. And so that's one of my fundamental disagreements with the process. But another thing is this: most people don't realize Louisiana is an open carry state. So you can open carry a firearm. If I didn't have this jacket on, I can put a firearm right on a holster on my side. It's absolutely within the law, constitutional. That's how it is. But if it's cold outside, you put a jacket on, suddenly you have to go through this process. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't realize that illegal concealed carry of a firearm is only a misdemeanor crime. Illegal concealed carry is only a misdemeanor. And so I don't think people really understand that all the different elements, but I certainly respect the concerns for the gun violence and how that might play a role.
If you have further questions, please remember that you can ask those at the end. Okay. On the topic of the LGBTQIA community, in 2023, we saw an influx of bills targeting the LGBTQIA plus families and individuals, specifically those in the trans community. Though vetoed by the governor, House Bill 648 passed in 2020. House Bill 648 passed, and in 2024 will limit gender-affirming care for transgender youth and not allow exceptions for parents who have consented for their children to access this care. Mr. Ivey, do you believe that this is an overreach by the legislature and a blow to parental rights? I'll ask that question again. Do you believe that this is an overreach by the legislature and a blow to parental rights?
So obviously this is a sensitive and complex issue in many regards. It's one that I've done a fair amount of research and due diligence on before I made my own decisions on it. First, I'd like to start off with respect. I respect everyone, and I respect individuals and their own beliefs and thought processes. So any decisions that I make are not based or founded on bias or politics at all. With respect to the legislature's authority, clearly the legislature, in my opinion, has the legal authority to put guardrails within the certain businesses and in the medical community specifically, obviously, and what they can and cannot do. That is currently there's nothing prohibited in the Constitution from the legislature doing so. Therefore, it's lawful for us to do that. Is it an overreach? I can see the perspectives that different people have. If you take a very fundamental, basic perspective that parents should have the right to make all of these decisions, then I understand that. But there's other decisions that we've made where in a certain religious beliefs, allow for female genital mutilation, and so the legislature took a position on that because it believed that it was taken too far. And so I believe that there is a lot of the science that doesn't necessarily support. When you look internationally at the studies, and some of them are ongoing right now, I don't necessarily believe that the science supports that this is the most appropriate form of support for this mental health issue that affect, particularly in the younger years.
Thank you, Mr. Ivy. So thank you for your thoughtful responses. We will now transition to the next section of the forum where we will hear from you, the community members. So we've discussed education, we've discussed the LGBTQIA plus community, we've also discussed gun violence. So if any of you have any rapid fire questions for Mr. Ivy before we transition, you are welcome to answer those in one more time. And lastly, anyone watching on Zoom or Facebook, please submit your questions via the chat. And remember, your questions need to be in the form of a question as time permits, sir.
How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
I like your point about hate politics, and I don't like it much myself. Do you know a stat or a number on how many people who carry a concealed weapon actually got into any type of violent act?
Anything I have is anecdotal, but obviously people who have concealed carry permits are much less likely to commit any crimes with a firearm.
That's what I thought. Also, do you feel like the victim fellas should be able to have a gun at their homes to protect their homes after they've been convicted of felony?
In the state of Louisiana, there is a process whereby someone who's been convicted of a felony, who has lost their right to possess a firearm, can actually, after a cleansing period, it's I think 7 or 10 years, post 10 years, they can actually go through a process and regain their right to possess a firearm.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Say, sir, is you a Democrat?
I am not a Democrat. I'm a registered Republican. However, as far as my process of governing and legislating, I don't look through political lenses. I focus on people, principles, and policy, and what's going to be the best decision I can make for the people I serve.
Yeah, I can respect that with the Republican, but the Republican is the one who really pushed for the amendment, Second Amendment, for us to have guns,
Sure.
in case to protect us. So you don't support the open arms?
No, I support permitless concealed carry for people who are, law-abiding citizens. And so the age group that's my preference is 21 years or older, and also require the duty to inform law enforcement should that, an individual who is concealed carrying without a permit, be stopped by law enforcement, where everybody can feel comfortable and safe in that engagement.
Okay, Mr. Ivy, you running for senator though?
Yes, sir. State Senate.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned that you were a, quote, like outlier in the legislature. So how do you plan to build consensus to pass meaningful but controversial legislation on issues or for issues that you deem are necessary but have that are controversial, that have some opposition? How are you going to build consensus to pass those bills?
Sure. Most of my colleagues, I've worked with everyone across the aisle. There's bills where I've put more effort in to a bill than the legislator themselves have put into the bill, and some of those legislators were Democrats, and some of the issues were not something that you would particularly hear a Republican stand up. Ms. Barbara Carpenter just had a bill, and I went 6 rounds on that, fighting for people's right to vote. It was a very narrow group of people it affected, but it was the fundamental right to vote. But unfortunately, because it was geared, it only affected people who were incarcerated for either charged with and not, due process hadn't occurred, or it was a misdemeanor conviction and they were still in prison. And so I work across the aisle. Most of my colleagues, I believe, respect me and the efforts that I make and why I make them. And so, but most of the issues I focus on are the technically complicated and politically complicated together. Those are the issues that I really try to focus on, because those are what I think people deem to be impossible to solve. And I believe it's necessary to work together with everyone if we're going to come up with meaningful solutions that can get the broad support from the people as well.
Barry, I have 2 questions. This one is, will you support repealing the right to work laws in Louisiana, because this hamstrings hardworking Louisianans and drives down wages?
No, ma'am, I won't. And so to add another outlier component to my representative nature, I'm actually a union contractor. So I'm a conservative Republican union contractor. Go figure. And so I've shared this. Look, I believe that we need the right to choose, because one model doesn't work for every business. And so some of the stakeholders on the other side, who really champion the right to work laws, I kind of get the stink eye about being a union contractor. I'm like, but there's value there. The value is that it works for my business model, and it may not work for another business model. So I believe that it's important that businesses do have that right to choose, but also the labor force has the right to choose as well, where they want to, commit their efforts to organized opportunities or ones that are, more freestyle. And so, I think everyone can find a place for them.
Okay. The other question is, Ms. Kathy opened the door for this one. For a long time, folks have been saying that Louisiana was getting just like D.C. And it's turned out that partisan politics plays a whole lot in the legislature. How do you, as a senator, how are you going to try to move people towards the middle to be able to work together on bills, and also just in getting people involved in the process?
The House is a very different chamber than the Senate, as you know. When you're 1 out of 105, the politics and can really dictate a lot of the of what's going to go on in a lot of the conversation. My observation for the Senate is that there's a lot more interpersonal communication, relationship, and work behind the scenes to try to get to the best policy. And I believe that the consistent efforts I've made in the House will reflect that I'm the best fit to continue that effort with Senate colleagues. And I don't believe that anyone has to sacrifice anything. I believe that if we elevate the conversation and collaborate on the problems and the solutions to those problems, that we can actually end up in many cases with solutions that were better than any one group or perspective could have created themselves. And so my target is never just to sacrifice or push to a middle, but to work toward consensus through elevated type of thinking and problem solving.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Mr. Ivey, we
have another question.
shoot. No pun intended. No pun intended.
Sorry, I'm working right now, but I have a question. Coming from a diverse community and representing the immigrant community, I would like to ask her, immigrants and refugees have made significant contributions to our state economy and culture. How do you intend to support policies that welcome and integrate newcomers, recognize their positive impact on our communities? Thank you.
So, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how, as far as a recognition, I'm just not familiar with at the state level, how that, really, how a certain policy could, play. If it's education policy, that's certainly something for Bessie. The state, our country is a melting pot, but I tell people Louisiana, and one of the things I love about it is that for its diversity. We are one of the most complex, diverse states in the nation. North Louisiana is nothing like South Louisiana, but we're all Louisianians. And then East Baton Rouge Parish is actually probably one of the greatest examples of cultural diversity in that, I live in the city of Central, the northern part of the Baton Rouge. But you've got Baker, Zachary, and Central, and we are all uniquely different as well. You can go mid-city. I mean, we've got all these microcultures within our community, and I think that just adds to the seasoning. And I love that, and I believe that that diversity should be celebrated, and that the contributions made, particularly from immigrant communities, is certainly well worth the conversation. How to best achieve that, honestly, I don't know.
This question is, what is your opinion on the non-unanimous jury decision? Meaning, should it be retroactive?
So, when the concept was first introduced several years ago, I believe Mr. Tarpley came up to me and asked me, I said, well, what's the issue? And he said, well, non-unanimous jury. I didn't really know the history of it or understand. I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest with you. And it was real simple. I said, well, if I was on trial for something serious, would I want a unanimous jury decision? Like, well, you betcha. So that was easy. I gave my commitment to supporting it right there. And so I supported it back then. Also, I was recently asked, the Haneys came up and asked me if I had a bill left, and I did have a bill. There was a very small subset of individuals who fell in a crack with some of those reforms, dealing with the non-unanimous jury decisions. And so it was only like 8 or 9 people. And so they asked if I would author the bill to support making it possible for them to, get parole. And I did. I brought the bill. We had a very good conversation in Criminal Justice Committee, which didn't really see it that way. It's like, look, I don't advocate for people getting out. I don't know the details and the history. That's not up for me. That's for a parole board. But because of the non-unanimous jury verdict, again, these people pled guilty, but the option what they were looking at was, if 10 people make the decision. So I felt it only fair to provide that group also with the opportunity for a parole hearing, and then leave that up to the parole board to make the best decision for that.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey. Thank you for your question. So we have to move merrily along. Mr. Ivey, do you have a closing statement? You have 60 seconds to let us know what's on your heart and mind.
It's been an honor and privilege to serve. It's also, I tell people, if you do the job right, it's all sacrifice and suffering. And I can tell you, it's been all sacrifice and suffering. I do the job to the very best of my abilities. I've put in, if I told you what I did, you wouldn't believe it. When our children's lives are what's at stake every day, when I'm at the Capitol, their future, the fact that they've lost, our kids have lost hope in Louisiana, that they have a future here. And so that's what I fight for. It's why I'm as passionate as I am. It's why I will go, until that bell sounds. Listen, I can get knocked down 100 times, I'll get back up. And so I appreciate your support. We may not always agree on the issues, but I can assure you that as a state senator, you won't have to worry about what's motivating my decisions, and that it will be guided by principle and deep-held convictions and good decision making.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey.
Thank you all.
At this time, we're going to move towards the District Judge 19th District, ES1 Division J. And so, Ms. Allen, Ms. Lager, would you please come to the front? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, ladies. If you all would take turns introducing yourself, you have about a minute, so we can start on this side. Let us know who you are and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move to Ms. Allen.
Okay. My name is Lynn Leger. I've been here in Baton Rouge since October of '94. I've been practicing since '99. I've been in the courtroom since 2001, as up until maybe about a month ago, every day serving in the courtroom, dealing with clients, not only just criminal, but also with some civil cases.
Thank you, Ms. Leger. Ms. Allen?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhea Zelia Allen. I am an attorney here in Baton Rouge. I've been in Baton Rouge since 2008. I have served on the 19th JDC as a staff attorney to Division J. I served in that position from 2016 to 2022. I have seen every type of pleading that you could ever imagine to come through the 19th JDC. I've served on the criminal bench, civil bench, and with reentry court. I'm currently an attorney at Dudley DeBosier, and I'm a professor at Southern University Law Center.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Allen, can you briefly explain why you are running for district judge in Baton Rouge?
I'm running for district court judge in Baton Rouge because I have a love for this community and a love for the people of Baton Rouge, specifically the districts that make up Division J. As I've stated earlier before, I have already been serving the district as a staff attorney, very hands-on with the community, because a lot of times in the judges' chambers, we get a lot of calls from different litigants and community partners about different things that are going on, especially on the criminal side of the bench. So I'm here to serve. I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Leger, same question. Can you briefly explain why you are running for district judge in Baton Rouge?
As I stated earlier, I've been practicing since 1999. I've been in the courtroom serving the clients. I've actually worked in the courtroom, worked with the clients, not just sat back and watched work be done, but I've actually been doing the work. I consider myself to have a heart of a servant, because as soon as I started practicing, I started helping people get to the next level on whatever it is they were trying to do. In 1999, I started doing criminal law. I started in 2001 with the Public Defender's Office. From that point on, I've been sitting in here in 19th JDC serving the clients.
Thank you, Ms. Leger. So you all both have already answered this, but if you could focus more on the challenges portion of the question. So what legal experiences do you bring to the position, especially as it relates and pertains to the unique challenges of Baton Rouge? So I'll say that again. What legal experience do you bring to this position, especially as it pertains to the unique challenges of Baton Rouge? Ms. Leger?
I bring a lot of experience, especially for a judge who will be sitting in November. With that being said, we have the challenges of understanding that you do have to have trials. You do have to have hearings. You do have to understand the people and hear their hearts from where they're coming from. You also have to understand that it's not our job to sit and judge the individual. You're judging the set of facts that are before you. And through my experience over almost 25 years, that's how I've learned that I can sit and look at the facts, look at the person's rap sheet, and know who they are when they stand before me. Not them as an individual, but to judge the facts from what has been shown with their rap sheet. And that's something that's very important, because that experience gives you the opportunity so that you could see what needs to happen and how we can move forward, especially not only just for the public safety of East Baton Rouge Parish, but also for the individuals and the families who are involved in the situation that brings them before you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen, same question.
Could you repeat that question?
Certainly. What legal experience do you bring to this position, especially as it relates to unique challenges of Baton Rouge?
So I've been practicing law for the past 8 years. I have experience in bankruptcy law, criminal law, civil law, intellectual property law, any type of law that you could imagine. I've actually practiced as well as served as a staff attorney. So the unique challenges I believe that I've seen the community face is that they want to know that someone cares. They look at the judge to be the third eye. A lot of times we see a backlog when it comes to public defenders, when it comes to district attorneys, and we see that they're continuously being set back for failure to work the files. I am someone who will implement systems, partnering with the DA's and public defender's office to actually work those files, because you would not imagine that there are people who come through the district court with one charge, and they have been to court 10 times. 10 times on one charge, continuous after continuous after continuous. Justice should be accessible, and that's what I'm bringing to the bench when I'm elected.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Allen, are there any specific issues or challenges in the Baton Rouge legal system, and you kind of already answered this, but you can expound, in the Baton Rouge legal system that you believe need urgent attention? I'll say that again. Are there any specific issues or challenges in the Baton Rouge legal system that you believe need urgent attention?
Yes. In the legal system, one of the things that needs urgent attention is that in the justice system, we have to become more trauma-informed. We cannot look at individuals as their charges. We have to look at them as individuals and as the whole person. This is on the criminal side and on the civil side of the law. You really have to look at them as whole individuals, because I cannot count how many times I've received a jail letter from a defendant as a staff attorney complaining about the things that they are not getting from the public defender or their district attorney, so they're looking to the judge. And most of the times, these people are committing crimes because they have trauma. We're not addressing that. So we need to have wraparound services. We have to bring the community back into the justice system and really pull in together on the resources with nonprofit organizations, these churches, anybody who can provide avenues to address those concerns, so that maybe their charges could be reduced, maybe they could be dismissed, or maybe their sentence could be something that's kind of worked out in a holistic way. So that's my answer to that question.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Leger, same question. Are there any specific issues or challenges in the Baton Rouge legal system that you believe need urgent attention?
Yes, I believe that the most urgent issue that we have in East Baton Rouge Parish is heavy dockets. I believe that because the dockets are so heavy, which simply mean that we have a number of defendants who are coming in on a monthly basis. And so I believe that maybe we might need to establish a little bit another court to help with that. That way, as we talk about looking at heavy dockets, we also talk about the mental health side. That's another issue. That's a pretty serious issue that we also have to discuss. In looking at people's mental health, I believe that if we can help, I always tell the clients and their families when they come to court that if we could address these issues, because a lot of times when you have drug-related issues, alcohol-related issues, because that is what's really causing people to come into the criminal system for the most part. And so most of those things are coping mechanisms. And by looking at and judging the situation, and also looking at the person's rap sheet, looking at the services that they may have already tried to receive on their own, and then also what the court may offer them, I believe that will help them to get to the next level. So I believe that if we look at our dockets, move things a little bit faster so that people can go through the justice system and get rid of the charges that they have pending. If we do that, then I believe that that will help the system.
Now, Ms. Lachey, the challenges that you just mentioned, do you currently have a plan to address any of them?
Yes. So my plan is, as soon as I take the bench in January, the very first thing that we need to do is go through the docket and see what has been the longest on the docket. Then, as a judge, you can order that the district attorney's office, the public defender's office, the private bar, whomever these cases are being managed by or being defended by, then you stop that and say, hey, this person has been in jail for this long period of time. That's too long. This is a misdemeanor. This is a low-grade felony. Now, unless it's a murder case, then there's no reason why your case shouldn't be on the docket more than a year. And just simply because, and the only reason why I look at it that way, here in East Baton Rouge Parish, we normally have a 60 to 90-day turnover, whereas in other parishes, they might have a 6-month to a 9-month turnover. With that 60-day to 90-day turnover, by the 6 months, we should have a place. We should be in a position to know what we're doing with that case and how we're going to move it forward, or we're going to get it off the docket. Instead of wasting people's time and wasting our time and energy, having people sit in jail, paying for that, or paying attorneys or paying people to come in and defend cases where we have no real issues that are at hand where the district attorney can prove or not prove.
Thank you. Ms. Allen, same question. Of the challenges that you mentioned, do you currently have a plan to address them?
Yes. Okay. So I mentioned several challenges in my talk here. So the first challenge, let's talk about being trauma-informed. My plan is actually to develop a wraparound services program with churches and with nonprofit organizations to provide resources to those litigants who are suffering from problems and they don't have access to those resources. So that's the first plan. The second plan, as it relates to the multiple continuances that I've mentioned, one charge of the case, I'm in full support of developing an action program, and actually I've done this before in the court system. So I plan to actually go through every file, starting with the bench warrant files. We have a backlog of bench warrants in the 19th JDC, and the program that I implemented was going through each and every file and calling the DA in and asking the DA what did they want to do with that file. If it was a probation file, I would just do an order. If they've met the condition, terminate them satisfactorily or unsatisfactorily. So I've already done this work, so I plan to keep implementing that plan to stop the continuances and make the DAs and public defenders work their files. So that is my goal, to have everyone at the table so that we can figure out a plan together.
Thank you so much, Ms. Allen. So recently there have been numerous cases in which environmental protections have been rolled back using the courts. In your opinion, how does this impact communities? So that's one piece. The second piece is, are you concerned about what this means for communities in the face of climate crisis? Why or why not? So that's two parts here. I'll give it to you again. Ms. Allen, we're going to come to you. Recently, there have been numerous cases in which environmental protections have been rolled back using the courts. In your opinion, how does this impact communities? And are you concerned about what this means for communities in the face of climate crisis? Why or why not?
So I actually worked on one of the cases for environmental protection while I was serving as a staff attorney. It was called the Formosa case. That case was a really high-profile case. It was involving a plant that was being built in a marginalized community. And so with that, we really had to service environmental justice there, because there is a concern where there's cancer alleys created, different kind of things that are created by plants being in those environments. So I am really concerned about environmental justice, because I do think it has not only an issue with climate change, but also an issue with health issues. We see plants that are always being built in the black communities, but, we don't see them being built anywhere else. And because of that, we have so many health problems in those communities. And I do think that there is a correlation. So the environmental justice piece, just to let you all know, that's more of a civil issue that we see on the civil bench, but it plays a huge role. And we've seen a lot of cases with air permit issues with Louisiana Department of Environmental, LDEQ, environmental quality. So I do think it's something that we have to address. You have to really do the research and kind of gain knowledge on that science background with environmental justice and education. And I've been on the front lines of that, especially with that Formosa case. And I believe that judgment, that ruling, kind of paused the air permits from going through.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Leger, same question. Recently, there have been numerous cases in which environmental protections have been rolled back using the courts. In your opinion, how does this impact communities? And are you concerned what this means for communities in the face of climate crisis? Why or why not?
Well, it's very concerning. I have worked on cases that I've actually represented clients where you have people who, and our clients, I'm on the civil side of actually suing these companies for allowing this to happen because they're supposed to have a number of safe measures that were not followed. And so with that being said, as a judge and things that I have the authority to do, I have the authority to say this is our time frame that we're going to be working in. Either you could work in it or you don't. The bottom line is the longer that it takes, the more these people are suffering because they have health issues that need to be paid for. These big companies, they don't want to pay. They don't want to take responsibility. And so the longer that they get to prolong it, the more sick these people are becoming, not just them, but also their families. And then this is why whenever you have these impacts within your community, we may have some criminal stuff that might impact one or two people or maybe one family. However, when we have these issues with the plants and them not following the safety codes that they're supposed to, it affects thousands of people all at one time. And so that means you could possibly be wiping out communities or hurting communities, not from just day one, but 10, 15 years later. That's why I say as soon as it gets on my docket, then we have a time frame that needs to move within.
Thank you, Ms. Leger. Thank you both for your thoughtful responses this evening. Before we get your closing statements, we would like to hear from any audience members who may have questions. Representative Smith is in the back, and And if there are any questions, we will go.
So we have 4 questions.
All right.
What system will you implement to hold persecutors accountable for being
Ministers of Justice.
Ministers of Justice.
So again, when you look at your time frame and you also look at the amount of time it takes them, once a person has been arrested, then they receive a bond, especially for the people who are not able to afford to have a bond. Then you're asking the prosecutor to decide. We did have a time when we were saying, hey, within 72 hours, then these people need to be billed. Well, they stopped that. I think as a judge in your own courtroom, when I sit on the bench in January, that's something that we're going to revisit. Because again, although justice does not move swift, it doesn't have to move slow either. And so that way, if you start with a time frame of saying either you're going to bill a person or you're going to let them go. And then, once we get past that, then once the actual formal prosecution starts, you still have a time frame of saying we're having one continuance. That's it. When you come back up, either you've made a decision of what you're going to do or you're not. And so either the person is going to plead guilty, be found guilty, or be dismissed. A decision has to be made, and that decision can be made within 60 to 90 days.
Do you have an opinion about the question?
Hi. So there is an article called 701. That's a 701 motion that gives the time frames of how long a prosecutor has from the moment of arrest to bill a defendant. My program will be very, very simple. If you're not within the timelines, I'm going to ask that it be dismissed. I'm also in favor of litigants filing a motion to quash. If there's quash the bill of information, if the time that they're arrested from the time they're bonded to when their case is up, and if we keep getting continuances, I'm in favor of a motion to quash to dismiss it, because either you have a witness for the case or you don't as the state. And I can't prolong justice to be served on these defendants. They have jobs, they have families. So if the case can't be proven, it has to be thrown out.
Thank you. We have another question for you. What are the qualifications for reentry court and drug court? How can those qualifications be modified to better help Black Baton Rouge residents to qualify for services?
So I'll take that question first. I served as the staff attorney for the reentry court. It was actually the first time we had a reentry court here in Baton Rouge. Those standards are the person has to be convicted of a nonviolent crime. The nonviolent crime under Louisiana Revised Statute 14:2, and with that, we would do an assessment and an evaluation on them, get the agreement of the DA and the public defender's office. And what happens is they will go to Angola for 2 years, and then they'll be on release on active supervised probation for about 5 years. We had about, maybe 10 guys to complete that program. They get certified in automotive, mechanic, HVAC. They get their HISAT. That's how the reentry court program works. I think with that, we have to have more visibility and marketing with the reentry court program so that people would know. But I also think that we need to have another type of reentry program for those defendants who do not have a nonviolent crime that's up to 10 years on a sentence. And so I think that we can develop that with different grants if we come together as one bench on the court. And we can do that for even your misdemeanor cases or your lesser felony grade cases. So that's the requirements for reentry. For drug court, the requirements are a little bit similar. That's more of an intensive program where they have an actual graduation. And so I believe that the drug court has been very, very effective along with reentry court. So I just think we need to have a program to implement something else with reentry within the city.
So I believe that as in reference to reentry is a very good program. It's a good program because it takes a person to the next level. You've already committed a crime. You've already either pled guilty or been found guilty. Now it's time, just as it states, it's time for you to reenter society and be someone who can support the community in which that you live in. The good thing about it is that once you give a person the opportunity and let them be exposed to different situations, then they see that they too can achieve. Now, the problem that we have is that all of the courts, we have 8 criminal courts here in East Baton Rouge Parish. One criminal court, the Section 9, that's almost shut down, so that one's really not included. If all of the courts work together and really support this program, then it would be much more successful. However, the biggest problem is, which I say that when I get on the bench, these are the things that I want to do and I'm going to do, is to push the issue of let's all work together, come together on one page so that we won't have these people repeating, because that's one of the issues. Without the reentry, with someone helping and guiding them, then they're going to go right back to the community where they were and recommit crimes. Whereas if we do reentry the correct way and the way that it's meant to be, then they will probably leave that community and bring their families with them, because they'll be able to support them with the economy and economic factors that we have that show people that once you have education, you're able to make more money. You make more money, then you'll be able to support your family, and then it just goes from there. In reference to drug court, I think that drug court is a wonderful program, and drug court is a court that the person is out of jail, whereas reentry, you have some that have already served time and or they're still in jail. But with drug court, the person is out of jail, so they have many more services and support systems that they're able to use. And then the more people, again, if all the courts would come together and support that system, it would be much better.
Okay, I have a couple questions as well. What is your view or opinion on the recent petitions for clemency by lifers?
I think that that's a good petition, simply because, like we were talking about the people for reentry, those people who are helping that's in Angola, they've changed their lives. A lot of times you have people who have been in jail for long periods of time, especially lifers, who went in at a younger age. And we know that most of the time, not all the time, but as people get older, they get wiser. And by being in jail and being incarcerated, you've had an opportunity to sit, think about what you've done, you've seen better, and they become advisors to others to help support and mentor other defendants who are now in jail. I believe that if you get to a point where we could have a process where we say, hey, let's see about what did you learn while you were in jail? The same things that the parole board looks at. What did you learn while you were in jail? And if you have to give the people the opportunity so that you could hear not only what's coming out of their mouths, but you could also hear their hearts to know that this person has actually changed. Because people do have the opportunity to change, and once you've been incarcerated for that longer period of time, you've made some decisions and you've decided on either A, I'm not going to go back to that life, and not only am I not going to go back, but I'm going to make sure when I get out that the people who are within my community, I'm going to show them the right way to go.
So with the clemency applications, I believe that is really, really a good thing. In my visits to Angola while I was working with the reentry program, I've had the experience of meeting individuals who were incarcerated, and recently in having a presence with VOTE, Voices of the Experience, I've seen some of those mentors and people who are incarcerated, I've seen them come out and they're leading productive lives. So I do believe that people can change, people can be rehabilitated. It's just that they have to have a willingness to do so. So I believe it's a good thing. And we have programs and organizations like Voices of the Experience to actually help individuals with clemency, with the Innocence Project. We have so many programs, and I think it's a very good thing.
I would do a follow-up, but I'm going to leave that because of the time frame. I've got another question, and it's directed to you, Ms. Allen, but I think that Ms. Leger will probably answer it as well. What have you done in the community, and why should you be in the seat if you're not out giving back to the community?
So I've been active in the community since I was in college in 2008. I've worked with organizations, Habitat for Humanity. I've had lots of community service efforts with my sorority, junior league, and even on my own. If there's an opportunity for me to volunteer, I will volunteer. I'm a poet, a speaker. I've always been active and involved in the community of Baton Rouge. This is not my first time coming out just because I'm campaigning. I have been involved, I have stayed involved, and I plan to stay involved as a judge. I'm not one of these judges who's just going to go and sit on the bench and be there and just rule from the bench and not know my constituents. No, I plan to actually be out there in the community, on the front lines, getting to know my community and knowing what their issues are. Because if I'm knowledgeable about their issues, I can make informed decisions in my rulings.
Lynn, you want to answer that?
Yes. Yes, I would like to answer that. I have been in the community. I've gone to the schools. I've read to children. I've listened to their parents. We've had programs. My daughter here is in East Baton Rouge Parish with the East Baton Rouge Parish school system, public schooling, and in doing that, you have the opportunity, especially the minute that a person hears that you're an attorney, they're going to walk up to you, start talking to you, asking you different questions on how you can assist them. Now, I've helped with different programs that we've had, different expungement projects, things like that, to come out and to help the community that way. Because once you get all these things taken off your record, then of course you could apply for different jobs to help the community economically. So I've had an opportunity to be out in the community since I've been here since I've been here since October of '94. That we've been in the community talking, helping with students and their families to get to the next level or whatever issues that they have. We've been doing that.
Okay, we each have another question, but and we're going to ask you to be brief so that we can get to the next group. Okay.
Your position on the bail system and its unfair treatment of poor people. What's your position?
My position is very simple. Bail was not created as a form of punishment. Bail was created as a surety or insurance to make sure that the person comes to court. However, I do believe when bond is being set, there are conditions that need to be applied to bond at the pretrial level. Those conditions that are in place are oftentimes to help the defendant rehabilitate themselves while they're being in pretrial. So it is not for punishment, and I do think it should be set. It's at the discretion of the judge. We do take into consideration the type of charge and the type of crime, but it is to ensure that the defendant comes to court. It's not to punish.
I think that everyone is entitled to bail, especially within about 24 hours of being arrested. You need to have bail. Added conditions here lately in the past few years of all of the stringent measures that they put on defendants for the bail purpose, it's like a double issue in reference to I'm already paying a bail bondsman for the most part to get out. Now they're asking people not only to do that, but also to be monitored. So it's kind of double. And again, that's hurting people's pocket. I do think that, of course, but what bail is, the purpose of bail is to make sure and to ensure that a person comes back to court, not to punish them even farther.
Thank you. The last question, and then we'll move on. How will you handle the issues with mental health assessments, like outdated bench warrants as well?
Ask that question one more time.
How will you handle the issues with mental health assessments? And there are outdated bench warrants. How do you deal with outdated bench warrants as well?
So when a person gets a bench warrant, obviously that's because they didn't come to court. But when you come before the court and you state that, hey, I've been receiving mental health services, I have been in facilities. Once you see that this person comes to you and tells you that these are the things that they've been doing because of their mental health, then you try to work with, I would ask the DAs and the defense attorneys to try to work together to see how we can move forward. You don't punish a person for trying to help themselves. You try to help that person so that we can move the docket along.
Two separate questions, yeah.
Yeah, because the mental health assessment thing is about, they be trying to get mental health assessment so people have to wait a long time to get up. And these people are sitting in jail waiting on them to get a mental health assessment or assessment. The outdated bench warrant was assessment one because they got some outdated bench warrants that's 10, 15 years old, but we should get in.
So the mental health part is more than likely they have been, their attorney has said, hey, I think that they're unable to assist me. They have to understand what's going on, and then they also have to be able to assist their attorney. Their attorney has then said, I don't think this person is able to assist me to defend their case. And you have to be able, your defendant, your client, has to be able to talk to me as his attorney to let me know what his position is on what the police officer says has happened or what this report is. If you can't do that, then you're not being fair to the individual, and he's not getting the due process that he needs. And though that might take 60 days, it might more than likely it's going to take 60 to 90 days, but you have 3 doctors who have to come in, more than likely go either to parish prison or to another prison within the state to go view that person, read over their medical records if he has any, and then create a report from that. Now, we could be able to move that process a little bit farther or faster. These people also have to be restored.
Time is of the essence. We have a time frame. Ms. Allen, go ahead.
Okay, so you had 2 spectrums, bench warrant and mental health. On the bench warrant issues, I plan to do what I have always done. I will go through every bench warrant file and ask the DAs and the public defenders to address the file. Either we're going to continue to keep the file, or you're going to dismiss it, or the probation is going to be terminated unsatisfactory. There's no reason why it's 2023 and I have a file from a bench warrant file from 2005. So that would be my plan for that, is to really just take an assessment. On the issue of mental health, I think when we talk about mental health, we got to look at the 2 different spectrums. The first spectrum is you have the Sanity Commission, where people have to be restored mentally. That will take a long time. A lot of times that I've seen is that there's an issue with the transporting of the defendants from jail to jail. And so we really just have to address that and really get these people processed in Jackson facility, because that's the facility for them to be restored. The other mental health spectrum is basically looking at the person as a whole person and seeing what's going on with them while they're in pretrial, because a lot of people are in pretrial, they have mental health issues.
Thank you so much, Ms. Allen and Ms. Leger. Time has been well spent. We would like for both of you all to give a closing statement. You have about a minute. We can start with Ms. Leger.
I'll just state, as I've been stating on this journey, that in order to be an effective judge, you have to have understanding for the individual who comes before you. You also have to be accessible to your community and still go and continue to do community outreach. You also have to have experience in actually practicing, being in the courtroom, understanding the defendants themselves and their families, which I have been doing. And you also have to build trust. Not just trust with your clients, but also trust with the people who are coming before you. I believe that once you all go to my website, see all the things that I've done, then you will see that as an effective judge, that's who I will be, number 84 on your ballot.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you all for having me today. My name is Riazelia Allen. I'm number 82 on your ballot. I am very invested and dedicated to the community, specifically Division J. As a staff attorney, I was very hands-on. I did not just watch the work. I was very hands-on, and I was very, very involved with these litigants and their families, the public defender's office, and the DA's office to make sure that justice was being served, and make sure that we came to the right conclusions and the right rulings and the right sentencing and the right punishment. That's on civil, criminal, and reentry court. Lastly, I have been practicing law for 8 years here in this state. I have a variety of experience, and I'm about the people. The highest form of currency is not money, it's people. And I'm invested with the people. And I'm going to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now we will have Ms. Colette Gilliard and then also Ms. Kathy Benoit. We're going to transition to Family Court Judge, Division D, Section 2. We start.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Colette Jackson Gillard. I want to just sit here by just saying I'm humbled by the opportunity to be of service. You know, I'm sitting here because I'm humbled because I'm a mother of 6, 3 biological and 3 bonus children. So I understand the family values and the importance of it. Also, I stand here as a wife to Desmond Gillard for over 10 years, and I'm grateful of that. But most of all, I would like to say that I'm a minister of the gospel. I've been licensed for 12 years, as well as I've been licensed to be an attorney that practiced family law for over 17 years now, primarily in family law. Last but not least, I'm a community servant. This is not something new to me. I've been in the trenches, lived in Gardier, from Gardier Lane, humble beginnings, raised by a single mother. and I'm the president of the Guardian Initiative, which is a diverse coalition of people. And so with that being said I run because I believe the children and families deserve better in the family court system. They deserve fairness and equitable. All parties deserve to be represented and to be able to know they come into a court and they can just trust the decision. That's what I'm here for, because children and families deserve better in Division D.
Thank you, Reverend Gilliard. Ms. Benoit?
Thank you. I feel kind of old. I've been in Baton Rouge since 1979. And I want to say first, I wish we weren't running against each other. I'm really pleased and proud, though, that we have some quality candidates who are running for family court judge, because the word needs to get out about family court. And I am a grandmother, oldest of 5, and have 5 biological children. At one time, I was raising a blended family from 3 different families of 7. I have been divorced twice, and it does give me a little bit of a perspective from the other side of the coin. I've been a victim of domestic violence. I've had an alcoholic husband. I've had children who have been affected by these issues, and I've had to personally find the solutions for them, and now I'm able, hopefully, to give back. I am also a member of St. Jude Parish Church, which is right by Gardier also. I really wish we weren't running against each other. And I have a life of service also. I do believe it is a public servant, and I was a little bit shocked when I went into family court for the first time and several times after, where it's like once you become a judge, the public service part kind of gets lost.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. So the library is closing in 30 minutes, so we're going to have to move merrily along.
Okay.
So,
quickly.
Ms. Benoit, what legal experience do you bring to the position, especially as it pertains to challenges in Baton Rouge?
Okay, so as I said, I've been here since '79. I did go to Tulane Law School. I graduated when I was 23. I think I was on a very, very fast track. I have always been active in community service, and I've seen Baton Rouge develop, and I honestly was hoping that my generation would have made a few more changes positively, because I've been around for a lot of issues that needed to be addressed and needed to be changed. Family court is a very unique court. It encompasses the whole family. Juvenile court, mainly the children, but family court is kind of like the whole package. And there's a lot of domestic abuse. There's a lot of mental health issues. There's a reason why you get divorced. So the judges need to come together with the community and work to try and address some of these issues to prevent people from going into family court. That's the goal, not to be there.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Reverend Gilliard?
Yes. As far as experience, I first like to say my legal experience is I graduated from Southern University undergraduate, and also went to Southern University Law Center, graduated in 2005 with honors. I believe my legal experience, as well as running my own practice for 17 years, defending and representing people that not all the times had the money, but they had the need. And so with that being said, I believe that there's a overreaching point in this time, a paramount, that someone stands for the children. When it comes to custody issues, I believe that the forefront issue should be child's best interest. Another issue I believe that's is a stigma is the domestic violence. I heard Ms. Benoit, attorney, stated that she dealt with domestic violence. Well, I've been there as well. I believe that you can't heal what you haven't felt if you haven't overcame it. And I stand here today knowing that I've overcome, not as just to overcome those pains of dysfunction in families. And with that being said, I bring that to the table. I believe in not only addressing just domestic violence, but the children are the silent victims of domestic violence. We need to address that. We need to have wraparound services. Not only is the protective orders in family law, but we also should have wraparound services, mental health for the children. And they should have a safe plan immediately upon leaving our courthouse. They should have a safety plan. That's what I intend to bring to the table.
Thank you. Next question. We're going to start with you, Reverend Gilliard. Recently, there have been numerous cases in which environmental protections have been rolled back using the courts. In your opinion, how does this impact communities? And are you concerned about what this means for communities in the face of climate crisis?
Yes, I can address that. In Gardere area, I can specifically say that they have sewer as well as they have plants in different areas. If we continue to allow the plants to do whatever they want without having parameters in place, I know that's not something a judge from my family court will do, but it's just me speaking as a citizen. We need to put a stop to that. That's very concerning. It hurts the people with their, like you said, health-wise, cancer. It helps the black communities more than any other community, and we must deal with that. And so even though that won't be an issue that comes before me in the family court judge system, I do share the concern and believe that there needs to be some attention. Things must change.
Thank you. Ms. Benoit, same question. There have been numerous cases in which environmental protections have been rolled back using the courts. In your opinion, how do you plan to impact these communities? How does this impact communities? And are you concerned about what it means for communities in the face of climate crisis?
All right. Thank you for that question. I just realized I didn't give a ton of information about my education. I did graduate from Tulane, and they have an environmental law, very active environmental law clinic and group there. I've also clerked for city court. I've clerked for the drug court. It's kind of one of those things you'd have to just go to my website to see all the things that I've done. But I disagree with the fact that we are not going to see those types of cases in family court, not directly, but as the collateral damage. Because as families are in these communities and they're being affected, then that affects their entire family, their entire mental health. And that might lead them to separate. It might lead them to domestic violence. And then those are the people that are going to show up in court. And so it's not just the issue in that one little area. It affects everyone. So basically, it's following the law, and which all the judges are supposed to do. But then taking into account the reasoning behind what's happening, so that they can get the services and the decisions that they need to move forward and heal and get out of family court.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Next question. How would you describe your judicial philosophy, and how does it influence the way you approach cases? You would approach cases. Are you going to go, or are you going to? Go ahead, Ms. Benoit. We're going to go to Reverend.
So my judicial philosophy is the law works if you work it, and to rule based on fact and not opinion. And I can only speak from basically my own personal cases in where I have been the litigant, and I have noticed that some judges have included their opinion in their decisions more than the facts that are presented. I don't want to say that in family court you're guilty until proven innocent, but sometimes it kind of feels that way. And so basically, it shouldn't be personal. Whoever comes before you, everyone should be treated equally. And the law is the law is the law. So if you go to see an attorney, they should never tell you, well, here's the facts of your case, but you have this judge, and this is how they do it. Okay, it should be, this is the facts of your case, and this is how Louisiana law says it's supposed to be done. And that is the great equalizer. And then that allows the attorneys on the other side also to come together and say, look, the answer is in the law. The answer isn't who knows the judge the best or who has the most money to keep in court. And professional rules of ethics for attorneys really ask you to solve things outside of court and not take people into court, because that's just cost prohibitive, and very dangerous to mental health, especially for children.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. This is going to be our last question. Reverend Gilliard, what would you describe your judicial philosophy, and how would it influence the way you approach cases?
Justice with compassion. Mm-hmm. I believe that we have to have justice with compassion in family law. What does that mean? We should apply the facts to the law, and I do agree with Ms. Benoit that sometimes you get in a court and they may use another set of factors, but we should apply the law to the facts from a heart of compassion. Mm-hmm. You should have a judge that's empathetic, that understands the law, that's firm when necessary. People come before you for contempt, temporary restraining order, but that should be a balance. Every party should be treated equally. That's mother, that's father, that's grandparent, that's the third party who's caring for the child, needs to be treated that way. As a judge, I will look from that point of view. I will bring my legal experience, my law experience, and my heart. That's who I am. I have no other way but to deal with my convictions. I believe when someone comes there, they should automatically feel that they will be treated fairly. And most of all, that it should be about the children's best interest when it comes to child-related issues. As she stated earlier, and I want to emphasize this again, we should always come with an amicable resolution in mind. Mm-hmm. I believe that we should have mediations back on the 4th floor every Tuesday rule day. They took that away. People should be able to have mediation before litigation. That's my philosophy. I don't have a problem making the decision, but justice with compassion, that's what I stand on.
Thank you so much. Due to time constraints, we will not be able to take questions from the floor, but if you all would like to take 1 minute apiece for closing comments, and then we will close out. Ms. Benoit?
Yeah. I really wish we were running together against each other because we basically share the same ideals. I do have also experience in mediation, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I would like to add, though, mediation without attorneys present. Maybe hearing officers that other parishes have too, because I've seen that usually the parties can work it out. Often the attorneys sometimes exasperate the situation, and once you take the attorneys out of it, unless they're compassionate, like my opponent, then often they're better off working it out themselves. And justice with compassion is the way to go, using the facts and treating everyone with respect, especially everyone. I mean, I thought going into court that would be a given. But it's not.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Reverend Gilliard?
Well, I would like to end with this. Our children deserve better. They do. Our families deserve better. The attorneys that come before the judges deserve better. And with that being said, I believe I have what it takes. I'm experienced. I'm fair. I'm compassionate about what I do. This is not me here for politics. I'm all about people. I have the heart for the people. I saw this from being an attorney for 17 years, that, there are some disparities in treatment, but it don't have to be that way. So with that being said, I want to be that person that brings that resolution to the table. I will do whatever it takes to uphold the law with integrity, but also do justice with compassion, and it's not a weakness, it's a strength. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to give them a round of applause. Thank you to all the candidates who have come out this evening, sharing your time and your platforms with us. Again, today's forum was hosted by the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, the Southern University Law Center, Voices of the Experience, EBR Parish Prison Reform Coalition, Louisiana Organization for Refugees and Immigrants, Preach, the Justice Alliance, Save the Children Action Network, the NAACP of Baton Rouge, Black Voters Matter, a Bella Femme Society, the Sierra Club, Moms Demand Action, Louisiana Survivors of Reform, the Amanda Group, the Promise to Justice Initiative, Justice and Accountability Center for Louisiana, Defend Louisiana Advocates for Social Justice, New Gamma Omega Chapter, Pumps to the Polls, Urban League of Louisiana, La Capitale Chapter of Links Incorporated, and the Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and Metromorphosis.